Then the referee robbed Tottenham in the Champions League final in 2019.
Mad random. Okay,
Yeah.
that was like a real momentous
That was
part
an
in your
event.
ALS journey.
Yeah, it was.
How?
It was blatant thievery.
How was that part of your ALS journey, sir?
Because we would have won.
And how does that affect your health?
If we would have won, I would have jumped up in the air celebrating.
You would have been cured?
Absolutely.
Oh God, here we go. I recall that around that time, Mustafa's mobility in his hands started to become really limited. And so we were just trying anything and everything that we could find, any kind of tool that could help him stay independent. At that point, I think you definitely couldn't do buttons anymore, or zippers. Yeah. So, even his wardrobe changed. So that's why you'll always see him in a t-shirt. It's incredibly difficult to get him in a button down. So we would try all different kind of tools. I remember you had the one thing that you would put your finger in and it would help you steady your hand so you can write better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pen holder.
Yeah, it was like a pen holder. Mm-hmm. Oh, we tried different ones of those. We tried 3 different types. Maybe we can do a video. Let us know if you're interested in the different tools and different things that we've tried in that regard, because we still have all those things, so we can kind of walk you guys through what they are and what they're for, and if any of you could use them for any reason, any kind of mobility issue, we could probably send them to you. So anyway, this is an example. This is like a bendy fork. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's bent here. And so it allows the person to not have to use the wrist to actually bring the food up to them. You used this for a little while actually, but then that became difficult too. And also it just became hard for him to hold anything that was kind of heavy. He just didn't have enough strength. And we eventually graduated to, remember that big spoon? Mm-hmm. It was like a serving spoon. And he moved on to that, and he used that for a long time. Mm-hmm. You were able to do that for a long time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I'd take Kabir to the park to play football, and I would walk with him, run with him, and that became more difficult over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And eventually, Moose started using a walker, just to be able to steady himself. But one of the things that can happen with ALS patients is what they call foot drop. And basically, where you could hold your foot at a right angle, ALS patients don't have the capability to do that. Sometimes it depends on where your symptoms start and how the disease progresses for you. But he had started to get foot drop, and it was making it really difficult for him to walk, because where you would normally just pick up your foot and hold it at a right angle to make your next step, he couldn't do that. It made him be at a huge risk for falling, and you did fall. So
I fell twice. The first time in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And I was still walking after that time.
Yeah. And then you fell again in the dining room.
Yeah, and that time.
And that time you fell backwards and you hit your head on the wall, and it split open.
Yeah, it was bleeding.
So let me interject, because I want to provide a few more details. And I just want to tell you guys how sometimes things work in ways that we just can't fully wrap our heads around. But that morning, I just gonna go into a quick story time. That morning was so crazy. It was everything was going wrong. My car wouldn't turn on. The kids were just being really rowdy and spilling stuff, and it was just such a crazy morning. Also, Caden ended up getting this weird rash Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so random, and it just like, it was all of a sudden, and I was like, did he eat something? Like, what happened? I asked my mother to help us, like get it together that morning. And I went to work in a different car, and I told my mom and my dad to help like deal with the car situation. And my mother said, oh, just leave him home. Don't worry about it. And at the time, our routine was that I would go to work. He was still walking around. He could use the bathroom independently, but it was just all very limited. My mom would help out with lunch, and then she would hang out a little bit, and then she would go and run whatever errands she needed to run or do whatever she needed to do. Well, that day, because she had stayed with the little one, she was home. But had things not happened in that way that morning, Mustafa would have fallen and hit his head and bled for probably about 3 hours before I got home. So I'm just really grateful that my mom was here. However, what I wanted to mention was, one, that was his birthday. That was like the first time ever that he displayed emotion, like over all of this stuff that's been going on. Anywho, the other thing that I wanted to mention about that particular event is that it spawned two different things to happen. One, I got cameras installed all over the house. And two, I basically put my foot down that he needed to start using his wheelchair. Because it was here. He had a wheelchair here. It was a loaner from the ALS clinic, but he just kind of was really resistant to using it. He wanted to keep his mobility for as long as he could, and anybody could understand that. But at that point, I no longer wanted him to be at risk. I needed him to be safer. So that's when you started using the electric wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? So Mustafa actually fell 3 times. You just thought about it.
The last time I fell down was in the bedroom when I was going to lay down to go to bed.
I want to call it a transfer accident, but the thing is that at the time he could still pivot, that he could still stand and he could still like turn, but he couldn't really walk that freely. And so I used to use that as an advantage in transferring him. However, that particular day, in the midst of transferring him, his knees just gave out. Holy moly, that was probably the scariest thing that we have endured. At least for me, it was the scariest thing that we have endured in all of this, because I didn't have a good grip on him, so he was falling, and I had to muster up all of my strength to try to pick up this grown-ass man and like not let him hit the floor with a walker in between us. Holy moly, that was like so crazy. Anyway, the point is, I ended up like trying to think really fast and like pulled the walker from in between us and just tried to break his fall. Basically, I allowed him to go to the floor without impact. And then after that, I sat on the bed and I started crying. Because it was just like the adrenaline, like finally I just had to release, and I just started bawling. And then I was like, how am I going to get you up? Like, what do I do? And that is when we had to call the firemen. They were super helpful. They came, and it's really interesting because a lot of times, people may think that they're familiar with how to deal with people with limited mobility. But I find that a lot of times I have to do a lot of coaching, even with medical professionals. So I actually had to kind of walk them through and help to lift you back up. And then we got him on the bed, and that was probably the worst night of my life. But we got you back on the bed. And what spawned from that was my starting to really push for using the lift. And at the time, we had been given one as a gift. And you know what? I'm going to do that as a story time, another video. But we had a lift, and we just didn't use it because he kept saying that we didn't need to. And that's when I started to really push for that. basis.
We didn't need to at the time.
So let's talk about when we realized that we absolutely needed to. Besides the fact that I was started to have to go to the chiropractor like basically once a week. When was the time that Greg had to come help you?
That was when I still had the walker.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I think that was one of the instances where I was like, we need to use a lift. But anyway.
The science is that your teeth, your mouth is connected to your spine and it can affect your nerves. So I had a root canal right before my symptoms began. I was consulting with a doctor in Jamaica about that. He had helped several people before who had neurological problems by removing root canals or other dental work that hadn't been done. So that was one that we did. And we went to I think it was Sarasota. But anyway, we took that out. That's why my tooth is missing. Then we went to that Dr. Phillips in West Palm. He practiced autonomic response testing and did a laser detox. And then we went to him like 3 times to do different detox. Then finally it was Dr. Grossgold in Clearwater, Florida. And I did a bunch of tests with him. We did a stem cell treatment, took my blood out, span it with the stem cells, and then gave me IV to give it back, and then the other half they injected in my spine. I got in contact with another doctor from Harvard Medical, and he has a different stem cell treatment that we want to try, but they don't have funding for free clinical trials. So a friend of mine I went to college with, playing Dr. Cameron, he told me about it, and I want to try it, but we had to come out of pocket about $4 or $5 grand for the stem cells. It's a different treatment or a different type of stem cell than the one we tried before, and we want to try that, but we need to raise some money for that. So that's the next thing we're gonna try. Yeah. Yep. And here we are.
Yeah, here we are. I think that brings us to present day. Obviously, we'll be sharing more of our routines and give you more insight into our life and what it is like to live with ALS. Please comment below and let us know if you have any thoughts or if you have anything that you want us to address in a future video that we haven't done yet. So yeah, and Kabir's not here to tell you guys to subscribe and press the notification bell and like and comment below. So do all those things because it really does help. We've mentioned before that we really want to increase awareness for the disease, and we can only do that if you guys share these videos. And so like, even if you right now pause and share with just one human, if each one of you did that, we would start to increase the awareness of the disease. Okay, so do you have any? Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Just thank you to everyone who supports me and checks on me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And thank you for watching. See you in the next one.
Peace.